Welcome to the Triple S podcast where we discuss the statistics, the standings, and the scoreboard. Today we'll look at the NFL after 3 weeks of the regular season and then look ahead to week 4. First team I want to cover today is the Dolphins. They're one of only two 3-0 teams, the other one's the Eagles. And in week 2 they had an impressive comeback against the Ravens. They were down by 3 touchdowns, but they came back to win it against a very good defense and even a better offense to compete with. Tua Tagovailoa looks a lot better than he did last season, where he was benched for Ryan Fitzpatrick at times. And he looks a lot more settled with Tyreek Hill, who's really been a really dynamic player, especially there to complement Jalen Waddle, that wide receiver duo on the perimeter. Their next game's today, Thursday night, against the Bengals, which I think will be a good litmus test to see just how far Tua and that offense has come along, because that Bengals defense is very good. They haven't shown it this season, but obviously last season they were very good, and so I don't think it's a sustainable trend that is 3-0. I don't think they're going to be a 13-3 team, 12-4 team this season, especially when they move into more divisional play. But I think this is a playoff caliber team, and I'm excited to see them in these next weeks to come. And I'm excited to see how much Tua develops and to see if he becomes really a franchise quarterback for them in Miami. The next team I want to look at is in the NFC East, not the AFC East, and that's the Dallas Cowboys. They're one of the biggest stories in the NFL now, as they are 2-1 with Cooper Rush, their backup quarterback, as Dak Prescott had a hand injury in week 1. Dak looks to be out for at least 2 more weeks, maybe more. But I don't think that that's a concern for Dallas right now, because Cooper Rush has been looking great these last 2 games, including a week 3 win Monday night against the divisional opponents, the New York Giants. He's had no interceptions so far this season, which is the best in the league for anyone who's played a full game. And he's not going to be the most dynamic player, but they don't need him to be, because that defense for the Cowboys has really stepped up this season. And it's not just Micah Parsons, but it's other players around it, especially in that secondary. So as long as they keep Cooper Rush as a game manager, and the offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore, there doesn't really have to make the quarterback to do too much over there, I think they'll be in good shape, because Cooper Rush isn't, a dynamo quarterback, but he is a good game manager, he's shown, and I think Dallas could win a couple more games here down the stretch. I mean, next week they have the Commanders, who I think are the worst team in the NFL. The week after that they have the Rams, which look tough, because I think they're a top 5 team in contrast. But still, anything can happen with a really good defense centered there with that linebacker Micah Parsons. And if the Cowboys, they're not a very mistake-ridden team, so if they keep playing that style of football, I think they'll be good for here forward, especially in a very bad division, that NFC East division. But speaking of the Commanders there that the Cowboys will play next week, they're definitely the worst team in the NFL. I mean, it's pretty obvious. They've only won 1 game, and that was against the Jaguars, who actually haven't looked bad this season, and who I'll talk about in a minute. But the other games were pretty much blowouts. Carson Wentz is playing lackluster, but I think that doesn't fall too much on Carson Wentz, but rather on their running game, which has just failed to complement that passing game in any way. Their leading rusher is Antonio Gibson, who only has 124 yards now across 3 games. I think they really need to consider getting running help in the next draft, or even trading for it this season, because what I'm worried about with the Commanders is that they're going to give up on Carson Wentz very soon, as bad teams have a tendency to do with their quarterbacks. But Carson Wentz isn't a bad quarterback. He's shown that he's a very good quarterback in the past, but he just doesn't have the tools around him to work with it. And so as the Redskins rebuild here, I think they have to keep Carson Wentz, but work around them, particularly in the running game. And I think if you look at that, a team that's in that rebuilding stage, but farther along in that rebuilding stage than the Commanders, is those Jacksonville Jaguars, who their only loss this season, they're 2-1. Their only loss this season was the Commanders in Week 1. It was a 28-22 game. But the Jaguars have actually been looking really good. They're 2-1, and they've been playing. Their last win was against the banged-up Chargers defense, and Justin Herbert was injured. But they looked really good, and they look like they know what they're doing. Last season, they were lost out there under the direction of Urban Meyer, but they brought in a veteran coach in Doug Peterson to Jacksonville, and they look a lot better. And I think that one of the biggest strides forward that I've seen in the last couple years, quarterback-wise, has been in these last 3 games in Trevor Lawrence. Last season, he really struggled with the decision-making and the accuracy, but this season he's stepped that up a lot, and I think he can continue to show that. If he can continue to show that these next couple weeks, the Jaguars will be in a really good spot because, like the Cowboys, they play in a really bad division in that AFC South there. The Texans look like they're going nowhere. The Colts are mediocre, and the Titans are a good team. But if the Jaguars can continue to play at that not a great level, but even just a good level, and stay consistent, they can pull out a second. Sorry. They can pull out that second spot in the AFC South, and they can continue to build. And so I think that and they can reach a spot where they can maybe get to a wild card or something like that. And teams that are getting to that wild card spot are generally more consistent teams, and I think that that's important for the Jaguars to continue looking for. I think they can be in a mold very similar to the Texans a couple years ago. The Texans were a team on the rise, and they had that 8-8 season and that 10-6 season, I believe. And I think the Jaguars can emulate that a lot, and they can reach even greater heights than the Texans did. That they reverted back to their old ways when Deshaun Watson left and all that controversy. I think that the Jaguars can really become a much more consistent team and a team that can really contend there in the AFC South. But I think that those are 4 teams that really should be highlighted in these first 3 weeks of the regular season. I'm excited for Week 4 and the rest of the weeks beyond, where we'll learn more about these teams as they continue to progress and as they continue to develop identities. But that's it for me here at the Triple S Podcast, and I'll see you guys next week. We'll be discussing more college football and more sports in general, such as baseball, as the postseason nears.